You're listening to Following On with me, Neil Manthorp, along with Double Ashes winner Steve Harmison. Don't forget, you can hear live and exclusive ball-by-ball commentary of England's ongoing white ball tour of India on talkSPORT 2 and the talkSPORT Cricket YouTube channel. But it's time to talk Test cricket now with Behram Qazi, Pakistan cricket writer and broadcaster. Behram, let's go straight to the result of the second Test. West Indies winning their first Test in Pakistan since 1990. 120-run win in Multan. And I must say that for the neutrals, and obviously West Indies cricket supporters, it was fascinating, absolutely wonderful, and a certain sense of delight that that Pakistan's unashamed approach of preparing raging turners backfired rather spectacularly. I mean, Army and I just can't get over the fact that the West Indies were 50 for 8 and won the Test match.
Yes, I mean, it is that sort of occasion. First of all, good afternoon to both of you guys, and it's always a pleasure to be here, Manners and Harmy. And yes, I mean, I can completely understand the sense of delight because, you know, the West Indies, pound for pound, are not as good a team on paper, a Test team on paper, as Pakistan are, and they weren't favorites by any means. But, you know, from Pakistan's perspective, I will say this, that this was bound to happen. It was inevitable from the moment they decided to reuse the surface in Multan versus England. You know, you're rolling the dice, and when you are curating surfaces which are rank turners of this degree, it is a bit of a shootout, right? You're bringing the opposition into the game and you're making the game a bit toss dependent as well. Not to say that Pakistan can't win a Test match at home on these sort of surfaces when they bat last. They did it versus England in Rawalpindi, right? So we know they can, but you're putting yourself at a disadvantage if you lose the toss in these sort of conditions because no one wants to bat last when the ball is turning square from ball one, literally. But to your point, Pakistan had the West Indies at 38 for 7, then 54 for 8, then 95 for 9 in the first innings. The West Indies went on to score 163, and 9, 10, and 11 Moti, Roach, and Warrican were the highest scorers for the West Indies in that innings, and that wasn't even the first time they had done it. They'd literally created that record in the previous Test match. So kudos to credit to the West Indies. I mean, I think they did a really good job. They maximized the conditions. As far as Pakistan is concerned, look, this was on the cards. I don't think this should come as a surprise to anyone. From the moment they gambled versus England, this could have happened. It has happened now, and perhaps the way forward from here is to just kind of make those turners a bit more tame. If the ball starts to turn at the end of day 2 or at the start of day 3, much like what they used to do in the UAE, where they were very successful, that might just be the way forward, and this could be another learning curve in this entire process.
Yeah, but I mean, Pakistan. To be fair, if I was a Pakistani cricketer, you just get criticised if you play on flat ones and you can't win a game. You play on raging turners and you give the opposition a chance. When you look at that sort of scenario, I mean, I'd much rather play on a wicket which has got a result in it and have the odd defeat. So if for instance, they've gone and beaten England. Obviously they've had the result against the West Indies. If they play on the 3 pitches in the next series against whoever and win 3-0, all of a sudden you're looking at it and going, well, yes, you're right. It is bound to happen. But I'd much rather play on these surfaces and giving us a chance to winning as opposed to playing on the flat ones and having no result whatsoever and not producing cricket, which is exciting in our country. Because I can't imagine it being very, very good watching on the flat ones for 5 days and nowhere near a result.
It's torture, Harmy. I've, been in those press boxes when those Test matches were taking place. You know, that first Bazball series versus England. I mean, credit to England that they forced results, particularly in Rawalpindi. But you're absolutely spot on saying that we would much rather, in Pakistan, have these raging turners as opposed to those absolute highways, right? I mean, I remember a Test match that Pakistan played versus Australia and Rawalpindi, and 14 wickets fell in the entirety of that Test match. Over here in Multan, in the second Test, 20 wickets fell in a single day, which was a record not just for Pakistan, but also the subcontinent. So it's two extremes, really. I want them to find some sort of solution that is bang in the middle. And, Pakistan were a very successful team when they were in the UAE because that's what the template was over there. The first 2.5, 3 days were for batting, and then the pitch would start to turn square. So I think you're right to say that this is far better than those flat decks where you're playing out 5 days of Test cricket and you don't often get a result. Unless England is playing, because Ben Stokes will always get a result. But yes, I mean, I think they tried something new. Credit to them for trying that. And it was a gamble. It paid off for the most part. They did this in 4 Test matches. They won 3. My point is that you won't always win the toss, and you won't always win a Test match in these conditions when you're batting last, even if you're a really, really good team playing spin. Now, Shan Masood mentioned in the post-match interview that domestic tracks will also be curated in the same sort of fashion so that batters can get more practice. My counter to that, which was echoed by Daniel Rasool in his piece for Cricinfo, was that Pakistan till November 2026 are only playing 2 more home tests versus South Africa. And South Africa have a certain Keshav Maharaj as well. So this ploy will work versus certain teams and not versus the others. South Africa, probably, it's fine. You could still go spin to win. But what happens when Sri Lanka do it, right? It gets a bit more tricky, which is why I want more UAE-like surfaces in Pakistan, which I think will benefit the team in the long run, because your development as a test unit is hampered when you are producing raging turners. We can see that with India as well. When batters aren't spending time out in the middle, then they tend to struggle elsewhere as well because they haven't just, spent a lot of time out at the crease. So it's an interesting sort of predicament, and there's a lot of food for thought here for Pakistan, but it isn't like shambolic by any means. If anything, I think this is entertaining test cricket.
Saddest thing for me is that for most of my life, I've regarded Pakistan as one of the great nurseries for fast bowlers. I mean, this is the country of Imran and Wasim and Waqar and so many others. I mean, I just think it's terribly sad, and that's why we like decent cricket wickets which offer a little bit of everything.
Yep.
Okay, let's move on because we've got to find out what. Yes, go on then.
Just a bit on that, man. I completely agree with you because Pakistan has very rich fast bowling heritage, like you mentioned. And of course, when you produce these sort of tracks where your lone seamer is going to get 10 overs max in an entire test, you are hampering their development as well. So it's not just the batters. So yes, some sort of middle ground would be nice where you aren't tilting a test match heavily towards one skill. I think that doesn't make for great long-term strategy.
That defeat to the West Indies, very, very quickly, finally from me as well, meant that Pakistan finished bottom of the World Test Championship, which doesn't augur well for the format. What's your prediction for the next cycle and the next 2 cycles, the next 4 years of Pakistan Test cricket?
It's interesting how if they had that 2-tiered system right now, Pakistan would have been relegated. But luckily for them, it doesn't exist just as yet. I mean, look, the test team is a work in progress. I think they performed a bit better than what those results suggest because they won 2-0 away in Sri Lanka. And then, they came back to defeat England. And then there's this series, which, it was a bit of a lottery with respect to the surfaces, if I'm being real. That Bangladesh home series loss will haunt them. And I think it's fair to say that they were, right at the bottom in this particular World Test Championship cycle. So that table reflects or paints a good picture of where Pakistan cricket was at in these last 2 years. I do expect things to get better. I think that their mindset is more result-oriented now, at least as far as home tests are concerned. And they do have some quality players in that team. Saud Shakil has been in terrific form. Mohammad Rizwan is one of the best wicketkeeper batters going around in world cricket. And, now they've got some spinners, some fast bowlers on the fringes. My only concern with respect to Pakistan and some of the other test nations which don't get to play a lot of this format is that if you don't play a lot of this format, how do you get better? That is my only major concern over here. But I expect them to not finish last in the next cycle. Let's just say that. I don't think they will be front runners to make the final. They're not there yet. They're not even close. But they could be someday. All hope is not lost. And the beauty of the World Test Championship, at least as of now, is that teams which actually play these 2 test match series have a bit of an advantage in terms of the percentage points that they get if they win. South Africa is a prime example, in this current cycle. So, I mean, this is Pakistan cricket. it will ebb and flow drastically, and we'll just wait here for the next high, I suppose.